Most students think discipline is about motivation. Wake up early, drink coffee, force yourself to study. Wrong. Motivation is fragile. Discipline is infrastructure. And the most powerful discipline system ever created was not invented in Silicon Valley, not in Harvard, not in some productivity startup. It was invented by monks. People who spent thousands of years training the human mind. Here's the strange part. Monks can sit in silence for 10 hours, read the same book for 20 years, memorize entire scriptures word for word. Meanwhile, modern students can't focus for 5 minutes. Phone buzzes, TikTok, Instagram, another notification, attention gone. But monks aren't superhuman. Their brains are the same biological hardware as yours. 3 pounds of neurons, same dopamine circuits, same working memory. So why do they have discipline that feels almost supernatural? Because they use a system so effective it has trained scholars, philosophers, and masters for over 2,500 years. And here's the real question. If this system works so well, why don't schools teach it? I'm about to show you the 3 parts of the monk discipline system. By the end of this video, you'll understand why monks develop focus most students never achieve. And once you see it, you'll never approach discipline the same way again. Chapter 1. The environment trap. Most people think discipline is internal. Willpower, grit, self-control, wrong. Discipline is environmental design. Monks understood this centuries before psychologists proved it. Look at a monastery. No TV, no social media, no advertising, no endless notifications. Just stone walls, books, silence. At first glance, it looks restrictive, but it's actually the opposite. It removes decision fatigue. Psychologist Roy Baumeister studied something called ego depletion. Every decision you make drains cognitive energy. What should I eat? What should I watch? Should I check my phone? Should I start working? By noon, your mental battery is already empty. Monks eliminate these decisions entirely. Same clothes, same schedule, same routine every day. Your brain stops negotiating, it just executes. And neuroscience backs this up. Researchers at Duke University found that over 40% of daily actions are habits, not decisions. That means almost half your life runs automatically. Monks exploit this. Schools ignore it. Think about the modern student environment. Laptop open, 15 tabs, Discord notifications, phone next to the keyboard, music playing, video recommended. Your brain isn't studying, it's juggling distractions. And cognitive scientists call this attention residue. Professor Sophie Leroy discovered something terrifying. Every time you switch tasks, a part of your brain stays stuck on the previous one. So if you check Instagram, then return to studying. A chunk of your attention stays on Instagram. You are operating at partial power. Monks solve this brutally. One room, one task, one book. Nothing else exists. Deep focus becomes default. Not heroic, just inevitable. But here's the problem though. Environment alone isn't enough. You can sit in a quiet room and still procrastinate for hours, which leads to the second part of the monk system. And this is where most people break. Chapter 2. The ritual engine. Students rely on motivation. Monks rely on ritual. Massive difference. Motivation fluctuates. Ritual does not. Every monastery operates on fixed time blocks. Wake up, meditate, study. Work, eat, repeat. Same sequence, every day. Psychologists call this temporal conditioning. Your brain associates certain times with certain behaviors. Over time, the behavior becomes automatic. This is why athletes warm up the same way before every game. Why writers sit at the same desk every morning. Why monks ring bells before meditation. The brain loves patterns. When a cue appears, it launches the routine. Charles Duhigg explains this in The Power of Habit. Every habit loop contains 3 parts: cue, routine, reward. Monasteries engineer these loops deliberately. Bell rings, meditation begins. Meal served, gratitude ritual. Sunsets, evening reflection. Everything is scheduled. Students do the opposite. They wait for motivation. I'll study when I feel ready. You never feel ready. Your brain chooses comfort, always. But ritual bypasses motivation completely. You don't ask whether you feel like it. The system already decided. Monks don't debate. They obey the schedule. And over time, something strange happens. Discipline becomes identity. You stop thinking I should study. You think this is what I do. Neuroscientists call this identity-based habits. Your behavior aligns with who you believe you are. Monks don't see themselves as trying to be disciplined. They see themselves as monks. Discipline is part of the role. Students see themselves as procrastinators. So they act like procrastinators. Identity drives behavior. But here's the deeper layer. Ritual does something else. It removes friction. Most productivity systems fail because starting is painful. Opening a book feels heavy. Starting work feels overwhelming. Monks shrink the starting barrier. They begin with small rituals. Light a candle. Bow. Take 3 breaths. Open the text. Suddenly the task has already started. Psychologist B.J. Fogg calls this behavior anchoring. Attach a new behavior to an existing ritual. Over time, the action becomes automatic. But here's the strange part. Ritual still isn't the strongest weapon monks use. There's something even more powerful in their system. something schools completely ignore. And it explains why monks can read the same book for 20 years without boredom. Hit subscribe before you forget this. We break cognitive illusions here. And the third principle might completely change how you think about discipline. Chapter 3, the scarcity principle. Modern students have unlimited information. Google, YouTube, online courses, millions of books, infinite content. And yet most people learn very little. Why? Because abundance kills focus. Monks operate on the opposite principle. Scarcity. One book, one scripture, one philosophy, sometimes studied for decades. At first this sounds inefficient, but cognitive science proves the opposite. Psychologist Barry Schwartz describes this as the paradox of choice. More options create more anxiety, more hesitation, more decision fatigue. Students jump between resources constantly. New video, new article, new productivity system. Nothing sticks. Monks eliminate choice. They commit. One text, one tradition, one practice. Depth replaces novelty. And depth is where mastery happens. Malcolm Gladwell popularized the 10,000-hour rule, based on research by Anders Ericsson. But Ericsson clarified something important. Mastery comes from deliberate practice, not exposure. Repeating the same material deeply, refining understanding over time. Monks reread the same lines again and again. Each pass reveals new meaning, new connections, new insights. Students read something once, then forget it the next week. But monks also use another trick, memory encoding, when information is scarce. Your brain treats it as valuable. When information is infinite, your brain ignores it. Psychologist Betsy Sparrow discovered something called the Google effect. When people know they can look something up later, their brains refuse to store it. Memory outsourcing, your phone becomes your brain. Monks have no such luxury. They memorize, repeat, recite, internalize. Knowledge moves from paper into neural circuits. Over years, the knowledge becomes instinct. But here's the problem though. You might be thinking, okay, the system works for monks, but I'm not living in a monastery. True, you have school, work, notifications, internet, distractions everywhere. So how do you actually apply this system in the real world? That's the final piece. Chapter 4, the modern monk protocol. You don't need a monastery. You need the principles. 3 adjustments, simple, brutal, effective. First, design your environment. Create a focus zone. No phone, no notifications, no internet tabs, just the task. Cal Newport calls this deep work. And his research shows deep work sessions produce far higher cognitive output than fragmented work. Even 1 hour of uninterrupted focus can outperform an entire day of distracted studying. Second, build ritual triggers. Same study time every day, same location, same opening routine. Coffee, notebook, 3 deep breaths. Your brain will begin associating that ritual with focus. Eventually, the state appears automatically. No motivation required. Third, limit your inputs. Choose 3 core resources for any subject, not 30. 3, study them repeatedly. Extract ideas, teach them, write about them. Scarcity forces mastery. This is the monk system translated for the modern world. Environment, ritual, scarcity. 3 levers that transform discipline from effort into structure. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Schools rarely teach this. Not because it doesn't work, because it doesn't scale. 1 teacher, 30 students, standardized curriculum, rigid schedules. Education optimized for compliance, not mastery. Monasteries optimize for mastery. Schools optimize for administration. And that difference explains everything. But here's the final twist. Even if you implement the monk discipline system, there's still one problem. Focus alone doesn't guarantee learning. You can sit for hours and still forget everything next week. Your brain is a leaky bucket. Information pours out, which means discipline is only half the equation. Memory is the other half. That's why I made another video breaking down the memory system monks use to memorize entire scriptures. It's surprisingly simple, and once you understand it, you can remember almost everything you study. Watch that video next.